Well, hello everybody. My name's Debbie Ryan. I'm Chief Executive of Impact Group, and I'm delighted to bring to you an interview today with Robert Henry. Robert is CEO of Pyrion Holdings and Chairman of DiaTech Oncology. And Robert's here today to talk to a little bit about a subject that's close to many of our hearts, cancer, and some of the latest developments in that space.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Thanks for the opportunity to share our story. A little history about myself. I've been involved in some aspect of healthcare for my entire career. And it's truly been an honor and a privilege for me to have been associated and be a part of Pyrion and DiaTech because I know the impact that we are going to be able to have and that we have had on people's lives who have been diagnosed with cancer.
So tell us a little bit more then, Robert, about the platform under development and where that's going.
Okay. Well, Debbie, I am sure that you have had someone that you know, a friend, family member, loved one, someone who has been touched by cancer. I have a friend who recently went through this. He said as soon as the oncologist said those words, he really didn't hear anything else that was said. The next steps for most patients is they go through first-line treatment. And some patients do really well in first-line treatment and respond quickly. Other patients do not and have to go to second line and then to third-line treatment. And some of the patients who end up going through third line and don't respond end up hearing the words that no one ever wants to hear. You have a difficult cancer.
Absolutely. So how do you envisage these tests being used? Because obviously that's a devastating situation. And I can completely empathize with your friend because, I mean, cancer is difficult to understand at the best of times, but when it's personal and you're taking on that information, I can imagine just shutting down anyway. So then how do you envisage them being used on a daily basis?
So we have developed two tests. The first test is the ChemoIntel. ChemoIntel is a test that is based off the original technology developed at Vanderbilt. And we take a patient's live cancer cells. So that can be a solid tumor, that can be blood, that can be a fluid that contains those cells. We receive those cells in our lab, and we look at the recommended chemotherapy agents that the physician has said, and we separate those cells out. We apply the different chemotherapy agents to those cells, and then we have a control well where there are no cells, or there are cells that are treated with no chemotherapy. And over 48 hours, we monitor to see how those cells react to the chemotherapy compared to how their cells with no treatment are doing. When we do that, we're able to make a determination whether or not the chemotherapy agent is reactive with those cells or not. And we provide that data back to the oncologist to help them make a better treatment plan. The second test that we have developed is the ImmunoIntel assay or test. And again, we take a patient's live cancer cells. They're shipped into our lab. We take those cells and we run our test to be able to determine how a patient is going to respond to one of the new specific immunotherapy drugs or IO drugs. These are the drugs that are really the new frontier in cancer. And you're seeing a lot of success with these drugs. A lot of patients are doing very well with them. But what we're able to do is we're able to look to see if a patient might respond or not respond. Could they potentially have side effects from these drugs? And then we also look to see how they would do as a responder or not responder. And then we can monitor them during drug trials as well. So we have these two tests to be able to provide data back to the oncologist to help them make a much more informed decision on treating the patients as an individual and their cancer individually.
I'm sure our audience listening to this will be saying all over now, okay, so when's this tech going to be available? When can we see it mainstream? How do they access it? Where are you up to there?
Excuse me. Currently, excuse me.
Okay.
Currently, we're the only company where an oncologist can send a live patient sample and receive the data back that we can provide from our two tests. Okay. They can get that information back within 2 to 5 days to help make that determination, and use that to create an individualized treatment plan. Over the next 18 or 12 to 18 months, we envision the data that we're developing becoming invaluable to oncologists, to bio companies, to large pharma companies, to institutes of research and development, as this is going to be a unique set of data that they don't currently have, that they can use to help make determinations on how to treat their patients, how to select patients for drug trials, and then how to monitor those patients during the trials. We also are envisioning there's a big growth right now in what is called population health here in the US, where you're looking at patient populations being monitored, physicians taking risk. And one of the things that we have always known is cancer patients are the great unknown. A patient can come in and you can give them a drug and they respond and go into remission. That's great. But some patients don't, as I described earlier. And what do? How do you treat those patients? Well, if you can have something that will help you determine the best treatment course up front to where you can get a patient in treatment and into remission quickly, it becomes invaluable for those types of programs. The other thing is, right now, there's a lot of new drugs in development. And you see the new immunotherapy drugs that are being developed. A lot of those drugs are very expensive. They can cost up to $150,000 for treatment. And they may be effective for 20% of the patients. So 1 in 5 of those patients. How do you determine if you're a health system? How do you determine if you're the National Health Services in Europe, or here in the US, Medicare or Medicaid system? Yeah. How do you determine which one of those 5 patients is going to respond? So do you deny the drug to all of them, or do you give the drug to all of them? And then 4 of those patients may or may not have any response, or they may have adverse effects from the drug. So who covers the cost of the adverse effects? Who covers the cost of the drug that doesn't respond? All of those are big questions that are facing all of us today. And one of the things that we really are hopeful about is being able to provide our tests so that these systems can say, this patient, or maybe this patient, is going to respond. We're going to give them the drug instead of denying everyone the drug because of the cost.
Where next? Where do you go to now?
So currently we're engaging key opinion leaders, not only in the US, but also in Europe, to start doing studies. We need to do what is called a pivotal study, which is a clinical controlled study to show the benefits of our 2 tests. And we're in the process of doing that. We're in the process of also working with a number of drug companies that are very excited about being able to send us patient samples to see again, will the patient respond or will they not? Should they be in a study? Should they not be in a study? Would this patient potentially have an adverse effect from having the drug? All those different things. So we see that over the next 12 to 18 months, being able to conduct those studies, provide this information and data back to biotech, pharma, clinical research institutions, physicians, health systems, all of these, to be able to make a much more informed decision as to how an individual patient should be treated. And we're looking forward to the day where no one ever has to hear, you have a difficult cancer.
Robert, thank you so much. It's so refreshing to hear some really positive developments in the healthcare system, particularly after we've gone through the year of COVID and all the challenges that's brought us. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to hear about everything that you're developing, and a real glimmer of hope in the treatment of cancer and for the patients going through those journeys. Thanks once again.
Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for an opportunity to let people know about the exciting developments that are going on here at Purion as well as DiaTech. Thank you again.
Thank you. And for our audience out there, if you'd like to know more about what Robert is doing and what his team is doing over in the US, you can get in touch with me and we can make the necessary arrangements so we can take that relationship further. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Thank you.